Hey everybody, it's Rajesh here.
And Tane here.
Welcome to our podcast, Baskets of Knowledge, Chats with a Difference. In our podcast, we invite guests from around the country and around the world to talk about how they got to where they're at the moment. It's about a journey, it's about an experience, it's about their life.
Kia ora koutou, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge, and we hope you're well wherever you are in the world, because if you're not, hopefully you get a smile on your face. Tony, nice to see you.
Yeah, good to be here. Good to be enjoying the hot weather over the last couple of days. Interesting contrast. Thursday it was 27, 28 degrees hot, and then Friday it was raining 15 degrees. So yeah, it's been a wild week of weather, but other than that, it's been pretty good.
Oh, awesome. And in the crazy weather ups and downs, any pieces of knowledge that you picked up in the last week that you have been contemplating?
Yeah, I guess I've been doing a couple of things now that I've taken a few weeks to, not think about coaching so much. I've started getting back into it. And one of the girls the other day in our group chat from this year's team talked about how one of the other regions has named their squad for nines next year and started training. And the girls have all, come out and said how they're keen to start training or start getting together and stuff like that, which is, I guess, a pretty cool reward to see that, they're passionate and they want to drive it themselves. It's one thing to have a coach driving a team and, striving for motivating them to, want to compete and want to do well. But I think, having them wanting to drive it and want to get out and do things, this early as well, when there's still probably a couple of months until we actually play, suggests that we've created a good enough team environment that we can now build on top of.
Yeah, amazing. That's the effect when you become self-awareness and self-efficacy, where ownership is done by itself as opposed to being forced by others. That's a massive change and a massive ownership of whatever it is really. And in your case, it's coaching. Beautiful. And my learning over this week, I was at a conference and lots of amazing speakers and lots of amazing learnings. But one of the biggest learnings that I had was with a keynote by Sir Ashley Bloomfield, who spoke at the conference. And he said something that really resonated or really touched a point that was every person, every time. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And that's something that he thinks about whenever he's doing whatever he's doing. And the key thing he spoke about, everybody has a story and everybody has a thing going on in their lives, but it doesn't cost anybody or anything to be kind. We all have our opinions and our facts, and we've seen what's happened the last few years in the world and in New Zealand as well, where people are being really mean and evil, and just because someone's got an opinion that doesn't match their own opinion, and that's fine. That's always been the case in life, but now people are becoming mean and sending death threats and just being nasty, and that's the problem. It's okay for us to oppose opinions, but it's not okay for us to be mean and unhappy. And I think that's something that not unhappy, is unhappy. I mean, being mean and just angry and unkind and hurtful, and those are things that nobody wants in their lives. So and that just made me reflect about things when I disagree about things. It's not a personal attack. It's just, hey, someone else's opinion, and that they're allowed to have that there. So bit of a deep talk there, but that's all good. And as always, to our regular listeners, we can keep talking forever, but we are not going to do that there. We scour the country, we scour the world, we look around, by stalking people, to find amazing people. And as we always say, we'd love to have everyone on here, and we can't. But this week we have a fantastic human being, which we think is amazing. And welcome to our podcast, Nate.
Kia ora.
Awesome, Nate. Thank you for jumping on. Nate, tell us a bit about who you are as a person, where you are at this point in your life.
Yeah, awesome. Great to be on here today. I'm very, very happy, and I'm great for the opportunity to kind of speak a bit about my like kaupapa, korero, that kind of stuff. So a little bit about me. I'm a 15-year-old advocate, activist, environmentalist from Whakatū Nelson. So for the last maybe 2-3 years now, I've done some pretty cool mahi up and down the country for some cool organizations. So that includes things like on the ground conservation mahi, so protecting our native species, a bit of advocacy work. So like in the conservation space, like some submissions for law reforms, that sort of stuff. done some work with School Strike for Climate, organising some cool local climate strikes in my area. But just, yeah, most importantly, just being an advocate for the people and the planet, I suppose.
Beautiful. Well, that's a great summary for you at the moment. But obviously, there's a lot proper depth there. So let's talk about this. Nate, you said you're 15 years old and you're doing all these crazy cool things there, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
But where did it start, though? I mean, you know, as when I was 15, this was the last thing in my mind. I was like, yeah, whatever, who cares about other people? It's all about being, you know, most 15-year-olds. I mean, the world might have changed, but it's all about me, 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 me. So when did this passion for the environment start for you? What is that moment?
I mean, I'm really grateful that my upbringing, you know, living in top of the South Island, I've got 3 national parks right on my doorstep. And I've always just grown up just kind of being in the outdoors, just, you know, exploring a local reserve, catching little, you know, eels and native fish in the local river. And I just feel like I've always had like a little bit of a connection to Papa Tuanuku. And then when I want to say about 8 years old, I was maybe year 3 or 4. My school was organising a tree planting with our council down at my local river. And I feel like it was that moment when I actually, like, this big click kind of happened within me, and I just really discovered this incredible thing called the environment, really. And I just, gained a connection. And ever since then, I've just, you know, just enjoyed spending more time outdoors. And I feel like it's just a part of me now.
It's crazy, you know, because you know we all live in a world where our norm is our norm. You know, like your norm was living out and being in nature all the time, but it's not everyone else's norm. You know, your norm. You're like, oh, this is great. Why someone who lives in a big city? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But even then, it's a moment that changes it. Like, you know, the fact that you did that activity, which made you realize that actually my norm actually can have an impact in whichever way it is, and it's taken me on this crazy journey so far. And I guess that is going to segue to your topic at TEDx. You know, you spoke about youth with nature. Do you want to talk about that? That connecting youth with nature, was that linked to your journey from that point in time to where you're right now?
Yeah, basically. I don't know. I do love public speaking, a bit of a passion of mine. Some people say it's a little bit weird, you know, being able to speak on stages.
Yeah.
And I just thought, you know, at 14 years old, why not? It's just, you know, a bit of a flex on my friends, but it's also a really cool opportunity for me to kind of take on the global stage.
Yes. Yeah.
And I just feel like, the mission of TEDx to inspire other people and to share people's stories from across the globe, kind of just resonates with me. So I don't know, it's something I'm a little bit passionate about. Lots of my mahi that I do is about engaging rangatahi with te taiao, the natural world, because after all, you know, it is our future, it's our planet. And I feel like as rangatahi, it's kind of up to us to, you know, front up, take action, and advocate for what's right for the future that we want. So 14 years old. I think it was maybe a year and maybe 2 weeks ago now. I got a little reminder on LinkedIn that I did my TEDx talk like last week. So just over a year ago, maybe a year, 2 weeks ago, I set foot on the red dot, as they call it, on the TEDx stage. But yeah, it was just an incredible experience. You know, a room full of 100 people, even though it's not that big, it's still just an incredible experience. So yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what is the premise of your talk and the essence of your talk?
It's basically just about like the power that young people have, and like the role that we have as being kaitiaki in the natural world, but also about all of the benefits that young people have when they are connected to nature. So things like in your upbringing, if you're brought up in like a natural space where you get to go outside often, things like your morals, your attitudes, and just kind of your education can be aligned more to like want to protect the natural world. So there's just heaps of benefits, really, you know. And I'm really lucky that I went to a kindergarten, which was always, you know, trying to educate me on the natural world, was always going out to the local reserve to look at, you know, insects and stuff. So just kind of a bit of a summary, if that's kind of, you know, how I describe it, of all of the wonderful benefits. And then also a bit of a call to action on how rangatahi can get involved.
Yeah, awesome. And Tana, you know, you grew up in Taranaki with the beautiful manga right there. Did you have, I mean, what's your relationship with nature and the environment, I guess, growing up in that amazing part of the country?
Yeah, I think my connection was definitely strong, but I think last year I'd done a summer internship looking at whenua and Papatūānuku and how the newly appointed Centre of Indigenous Science at the university could use those, you know, to interweave some of the ideologies within the centre. And I think it wasn't until then that I really appreciated, I guess, how closely linked to nature I was, you know, as you say, having the Mona right there, having beautiful beaches that I could easily access, you know, 5-10 minute walk. I think you take it for granted when you live in those places. And again, you know, I think it was realized once I left and went to Dunedin, you know, because now every time I go back home, I realize that I miss those things that, again, I took for granted, you know, growing up, because you're right there, right at the foot of your, you know, doorstep. And so, yeah, it's not until you step away or take a step back that you realize that, you know, not everybody's privileged to have that experience. And I think too, you know, year 13, we had international students come, and, you know, some of those students, the closest beach was 3 or 4 hours away. So again, you know, it's sometimes you need other people to really, you know, help put that in perspective in terms of what you have access to.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I'm the same as I grew up in Africa. You know, nature was on my doorstep. Like when I say nature, I mean wildlife, like real wildlife, not a bird, not a bird. I'm just kidding, Nate. I mean, you know, lions and elephants. You could just, you know, that was right there in my world, and I just took it for granted until I came here to New Zealand. I was like, actually, wait a minute, this is so strange. And now I have to watch a documentary about the place where I grew up in to really understand where it is. It's so weird, but that's human nature, right? And that happens to all of us wherever we're from, right? It's pretty crazy. Talking about watching documentaries and things like that there, like you're also pretty active in the world of social media and photography. Where did that passion come from, and how does that change your worldview as you start looking at things from a lens as opposed to from your eyes, which are also lenses, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, good question. Good partai. I don't know how my passion for photography kind of started. My sister, she's a qualified veterinarian, and she is, one of her good mates is now a wildlife vet. And when I met her for the first time, we kind of just like connected. So kind of all of her kaupapa is about protecting the subantarctic islands. So she's about to start
Oh,
her
wow.
PhD down on the Auckland Islands, looking at I think it's sea lion mortality rate, which is pretty awesome stuff. But she's a bit of an avid photographer, so I kind of just like got inspired by her. And then my first camera, which I brought, like wildlife camera, was actually her camera that she sold to me for mates rates, of course, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. So some of the lenses I've got still have, you know, traveled the world. I've been to Africa, Antarctica. So it's, yeah, pretty cool. I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of how I got into the passion of it, I suppose. And then since then, I've always just been really inspired, you know, by trying to just like, I don't know, just show other people that wouldn't have these opportunities to be able to explore these incredible places, like the wonders and the incredible things that you can actually find if you step out of, you know, your comfort zone, if you step out into the wilderness. Because, you know, here in Aotearoa, we've got such incredible biodiversity, such incredible landscapes. And a lot of people don't actually know that they exist. You know, you see things like Mount Cook, say, but people don't actually know about things like, you know, Fiordlands or the Wild West Coast and all these incredible places. So for me, it's just about trying to showcase these things and just trying to spark something within people to actually be like, you know, hey, look, there's actually these really cool places. I want to do my part as a kaitiaki, and just trying to inspire people just to want to protect it and actually just think about, you know, before they do things.
That's really that's a great motivator and a great passion there. And I guess like my next question based on that is, you know, we had Kaito on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he spoke about his photography passion with people and activists and people, but yours is a whole different world, but it's still as impactful. And how do you see yourself as, you know, behind the lens and going, I want to tell the story here. What are you thinking about as you take a picture of, say, any piece of biodiversity? What is going through your mind when you're taking that? If you want to draw us through how that happens for you.
Holy shit, quite often, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Being in the moment, I suppose, because, you know, you can't often relive these moments, and it's just an incredible experience. Like every single photo I take tells a story, in my opinion, you know, whether it be a place, whether it be a moment that's just happened, like an experience. And I feel like a lot of that passion has come from Kaita as well, because he's an incredible photographer. He takes some stunning photos. So whenever I see him post them on his Instagram, I'm always blown away with how he does them, you know, so well. So yeah, I think it's just like the aspect of storytelling, I suppose. And then if we just go to the other question about social media, it kind of links in there as well.
Yeah.
Because for me, I feel like social media is such an incredible tool that people can use to advocate for things and to tell stories. So as an advocate and an activist, I use social media quite often, whether it be posting about stories of my own, whether it be posting, things I've just done, like experiences, events, conferences, whatever, but also sharing other people's mahi that they do, kind of like celebrating it, promoting it, whether someone's just won an award, there's like a cool infographic just made. It's just kind of about, kind of creating a space to promote all of this incredible mahi that people across Aotearoa are doing.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that. But can I ask you a question? We've heard the word we've heard the word advocate and activist many times, and in
Yeah.
Nate's opinion or Nate's idea, what is the difference between the two? How would you describe what an advocate is versus an activist? And are they the same or they're different in your perspective?
I feel like they're quite similar in my opinion. Although I don't know, because I kind of interchange both the
Interchange them.
words,
Yeah.
quite often. Although I feel like an advocate is more about someone that knows, I don't know, just has like a deeper connection or like has a deeper sense of the understanding of like what they're doing, if that makes sense. So like you'd be advocating for something, so you'd be more like qualified in a way, I suppose. With an activist is someone who's more like on the ground, hands on, like just do the work and do it now. Although they are quite similar, and I just call myself both of them because I feel like I tick both boxes. But yeah, I feel like both incredible like definitions and stuff.
Yeah, and I guess someone can be an advocate but not an activist, and someone can be an activist but not an advocate. But either way, it's as long as you have the same end goal in mind. One person is going to be, like you said, if we use the word advocacy, someone who has understanding of why they're advocating, whereas an activist is, hey, I'm going to support Nate because I think Nate's awesome. I don't know what Nate's on about, but I'm just going to support him. I don't really care. That's another way to look at it, right? Yeah. And that becomes important as we look at different topics. The topic I want to talk about is streets for people. How do you get involved in that there? Because that's obviously something that I've read about that you're really interested in, and you could be like, oh, I really care about my environment there. But let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. How you got into that as an advocate or an activist?
I can't remember, to be honest. So
that's okay. What's it all about though? That's what it's about.
It's a program. So my local council is Tasman District Council, and they got, I want to say, like $3.4 million worth of funding. It's something crazy like that. From central government to kind of redesign and rebuild some of the streets that are close to schools to make it safer for people. So things that they're doing is like making the cycleways bigger, making their like least car parking safe, having like more green spaces, just trying to create like a more like inclusive space. So even though I live out in Brightwater, which is quite a distance from my school, and it's like quite a rural area, kind of like the central part of the region, or like the most like populated bit is called Richmond. So that's where all like the schools are. There's a shopping mall, that kind of thing. So kind of my role within the working group, as they called it, was just kind of like a bit of a student liaison person. So I would be like, they'd have like a proposal for an idea, they've got a new design they want to try and implement, and then my role would be just kind of saying like, from a student's perspective, we want to be walking this way, or we want to have more cycle lanes near the schools. A crossing would go here better because lots of kids will jaywalk there. But yeah, just kind of working closer with council was kind of like the whole point of it from my perspective, to try and create safer spaces around schools, really, to, allow kids to bike to school more often, try and reduce their own carbon footprints rather than relying on, cars and stuff. And that also linked into the public transport system that we've got. So we've got a very well new and improved electric bus system. So also about trying to find ideal places for the bus stops near the schools. That kind of summarizes though, like what the whole program was about. So I want to say last year and up until now, they've redesigned quite a few roads, and then the upcoming kind of like redesign, whatever you want to call it, is the road that goes outside of my school. So it's quite a quiet road still, but just trying to make it safer for students. So I'm quite excited to be able to actually, do a bit more collaborating with them to make the street outside of my kura safer.
Yeah, and I guess it's double whammy, right? You beautifying things, making things more attractive in terms of the environment, but at the same time, safety is part of the whole conversation.
Yeah.
Because as we see a lot of schools around the country, schools are amazing places, but sometimes they're in the most inappropriate positions, and you've got to think about the traffic and just making them more welcoming, which is awesome. And I guess more welcoming, and talking about that whole theme there. Youth Hub, Forest and Bird, welcome.
Yeah.
This is your jam. Let's talk about that there. I mean, I saw a post the other day on LinkedIn where you have some opportunities available. But this is part of your DNA, I guess. But tell us what you do with that space there.
So yeah, as you may or may not know, Forest and Bird is New Zealand's largest conservation organisation who have been advocating.
Can I stop you for a second? Just for a second.
Yeah.
I just thought of an idea. What do you think about the Bird of the Century competition?
Don't even go there.
Go on. Let's talk about it. We'll have some controversy here.
We do indeed. I feel like I've kind of got pros and cons of John Oliver's little thing he did. So obviously it was great that we raised something. I think it was almost like $600,000 for Forest and Bird, which is an incredible amount of money.
Yeah.
It's also created another platform for people to advocate about our native species here in Aotearoa. It's obviously the kaitaki. People, don't really know about the bird until recently, basically. And also just trying to create this space for a bit more advocacy, even on an international level, because obviously John Oliver took these billboards to Mumbai, India, in the middle of the USA. But then I feel like it's kind of ruined the purpose of it, kind of a bit of a Kiwi competition, New Zealanders just doing what we do best, talking about our, wacky bird species. So yeah, I think it was great, but also a little bit shit, to be honest. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, the birds I voted for, quite controversial because, staying true to my heart. There's a couple of bird species I've been very fortunate to kind of do some mahi around. So the orange-fronted parakeet was a bird that I helped translocate. So there's only 300 odd individuals left. And my local predator-free sanctuary, the Brook Sanctuary, it's the largest mainland sanctuary in the South Island, or no, second largest mainland sanctuary in the South Island. And they've translocated 144 of the individuals.
Oh wow.
Which is quite a lot. So I was quite fortunate to be on board and actually help translocate 20 of those species birds. So I was, walking the birds down the hill with like them in the box into the little aviary. So they were my number one vote, and obviously you get 5 votes. So the other birds I voted for was the Fio, because they're quite rare, but also making a comeback in my region. There was the kaitaki, which is the brown teal. They're also quite rare, making a comeback in my region. And then it was the Hutton shearwater, because they kind of advocate for just like all of the shearwater species. So some of my other conservation work, which I'm sure we'll get into later, is about working with us native seabird species. So I've helped translocate over 100 fluttering shearwater to some to this pest-free sanctuary on a cliff top. So that's trying to start a new colony of these seabirds. So that's 4 of my votes. And then the 5th vote, I think, was for the huia, because it's an extinct bird. It's pretty cool that Forest and Bird are bringing back some extinct birds into this year's competition. So yeah, very controversial, but I think it was awesome that we had almost 300,000 votes.
I think it's got its pros and cons, like you said, but I think that the beauty of it is the world now knows about it, and it is. But the key thing is the funding, because the funding, I'm guessing you don't get a lot of money, and the fact that John Oliver jumped on and just did what it did, and I don't know if you saw his skit on Jimmy Kimmel, which is pretty crazy, or John, one of those late night show hosts where he was wearing the kaitaki costume, which is pretty crazy, awesome. But also it also shows. I mean, if we think about it deeper, it also shows how in politics or in voting, other agents can come in and just change the whole nature of an election. But it's interesting. I mean,
so
I think
relevant to New Zealand as well, I reckon.
100%. I think it was entertaining. It was entertaining to watch, but also it's humans are interesting. When someone that is and has got a good influence out there, whether it's good or bad, whatever influence out there. I use the word influence, but you know what I mean. The impact changes, right? Just changes dramatically. If we didn't do that there, no one would know about this competition. It'll just be little New Zealand, and hopefully that'll inspire other countries in the world to have a similar competition or similar ideology. Which is pretty cool. But anyway, I wanted to bring that up because obviously Forest and Bird is your jam, and you would have been seeing this happening, and you're like, oh no, what is going on here, Mumbai? But
basically.
So let's go back to that. So so Forest and Bird, let's talk about that then. How you've been involved in it, and
so they've been going for 100 years now, kind of being like the leading voice of nature in Aotearoa. And then in 2016, 2017, two incredible people who I'm work quite closely with kind of approached Forest and Bird and were like, hey, look, your branches, which is kind of like their main like way of advocating for nature, they've got branches across the country, are kind of just full of old white people basically. So they were like, hey, look, we want to try and get more young people involved in Forest and Bird. So from then they set up the Forest and Bird Youth Network, which is a group of rangatahi aged 14 to 25 from across Aotearoa who are passionate about, being advocates and activists, whether it be, for Papatuanuku, the climate, and these people have got passions, a very broad range of passions, whether it be like things like looking at law, freshwater, climate, insects, plants, flowers, whatever it is, you name it. So how the network kind of is structured is that there's things called hubs. So there's regional hubs, whether it be like Auckland, Northland, Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin now. And they're kind of just like the center point for young people in the region who want to actually get involved in like hands-on conservation mahi, tree plantings, pest trapping, that kind of thing. So it's just like it's a network that's made by young people for young people with like a bit of a mission and a vision to just engage more rangatahi and just help them to create that connection to Papatuanuku, which obviously aligns a lot with all of my mahi that I already did with the TED Talk and stuff. And then there's also virtual hubs, as they call it. So I'm the communications manager at Forest and Bird Youth. So I manage all of the communications that we do. So looking at design, social media, just advocacy as a whole, and also working with Forest and Bird's core team. So I was quite involved with things like Bird of the Century this year and last year, but also helping out with their policy team on submissions and stuff. Anyway, so one of the virtual hubs, which I'm very fortunate to lead, is the communications hub. So we are a group of rangatahi from across Aotearoa, whether you be in Northland or, Bluff and Invercargill, who are just being nature advocates. So we run things like campaigns for nature, like election campaigns. But they also help manage like the social media platforms and just, as a whole, just trying to spread the word of, who we are, our mission, our vision, whilst being an active voice for nature.
That's very cool. And what have you seen changing for you since you've jumped on in terms of maybe awareness or involvements? What are some key things that you've noticed?
I feel like as an individual, I've definitely learned so much, whether it be things like social media, how to optimize social media, but also upskilling my own leadership skills, and communication skills, being able to lead a team at only 15 years old, leading a team of people who are literally adults, and trying to get them to listen to what I want to do and just, a bit of collaborative stuff. But I've also learned just kind of how much passion there is and how much will people have in Aotearoa. And there's it's an incredible network, basically, of young people who are just, share the same passion, share the same vision as I do. And it's just an incredible experience being able to work with them. And just, having them as mates, really.
Yeah, awesome. And what about changes in the actual organization for you in the way that your voices are now being heard or being more recognized, I guess? Or is that still something that's taking some time?
I mean, the network is quite new. It's only 6 years old. So 2019, we had a pretty good network. We had some real active hubs, heaps of really good like collateral going and stuff. And then of course COVID-19 hit. I feel like for a lot of spaces that I've worked in, I know other people share like the same experience. You know, when COVID-19 hit, all of this momentum was building up, and then it just like stopped all of a sudden and just crashed completely. So we kind of had to restart in square one kind of last year. So we did have Auckland Hub and Wellington Hub and Christchurch Hub still kind of actively going with members and stuff. But we had a bit of a relaunch last year where we had to kind of restart the network in a way. But where am I going with? Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Over 6 years, we've definitely expanded the network in a way. So we've, expanded. We've got quite a few hundred. I think we've got nearly 800 members across the country who are actively involved. So yeah, that's grown from 2 people who first founded the network back in 2016.
Which is crazy, the impact of the ripple effect of 2 people versus 800 people is just is out there, out the gate.
Yeah. It's just an incredible experience, really. I don't know what else to say, to be honest, about Forest and Bird.
Oh, good. It sounds like it sounds like a great place and it's an actual it's a reality of an idea. It's actually doing things, which is really, really cool. And talking about you mentioned in your learnings and your growth there, you mentioned the word leadership, and a great thing that happened for you this year was the Blake Inspire. Let's talk about that there. So this was Sir Peter Blake and his impact on his ripple effect. I mean, he passed away a while ago, and his impact on ripple effect is still massive. So getting involved with Blake Inspire, what is that like for you? And I mean, the application process and actually getting involved in it.
Yeah. Blake Inspire. Well, Blake is another organization which I align quite closely with. It's once again trying to inspire leadership within high school age students, particularly like environmental leadership. So they've got a really cool program called Blake Inspire, which is got my little book here, which I had on the kind of experience. So it's a week-long leadership program. They host about 3 of them a year, where about 30 high school age children come together for a week, get to work with experts, environmentalists, and just have a really cool time with all these hands-on experience. So I attended Blake Inspire in April this year up in the Waikato. So we were up in Raglan, not Taupo actually, Hamilton, Rotorua. It's actually where I met Kaita as well, who you obviously talked about before, who you interviewed a couple of weeks ago. The application process, pretty straightforward. So I think it was February this year. Applications kind of came out. It was like a 1-page, just, tell us who you are, what inspires you, and how do you want to, what do you want to learn from this experience? How do you want to give back to your community? And I just felt, the day afterwards, actually the day that we left, I was like in tears. Honestly, I was so emotional. I was so vulnerable. It was just such an incredible experience. And it's crazy to think about how in 5 days, a group of 30 young people who don't even know each other can literally become best friends and just become, lifelong mates, really. And we still stay in touch. We've got a little group chat going on Instagram, so we do talk quite often. But just that, 5 days, probably the best 5 days I've ever had in my life, if I'm being, honest.
And what made it so amazing? Like, was it apart from the connection with your new peers, I guess, what is the because the reason I say this is because you can connect with peers the same mind in a different environment. What is it about the Blake Inspire thing that just went, well, wait a minute, this is next level?
Just like the idea, I suppose, of having 29 other young people who are your age, between they're year 11 to 13, so that's about 15 to 18 years old. So I'd only just turned 15 then as well. I was one of the youngest people attending it. But just finding 29 other people who are just like you, really, share the same passions, and just, how we got on so well and how we were also engaged throughout the week, whether it be down at the Raglan Estuary, learning about like carbon sequestration and stuff. We were just also engaged, and we just are like the same people kind of duplicated 29 times over. just finding your people and finding people who are just like you was a crazy cool experience.
That's very cool. And talking about 29 people that are exactly the same as you, I'm going to shift a little bit and talk about you're still a young person. You're doing all these crazy cool things here,
Yeah.
but you're still at school.
Yeah.
How do you balance that there? How do you manage, all these crazy things which an adult would struggle to do, I guess, while they're working, and you are still having to do your NCA exams and still be a young person in your school environment. What is that like?
Yeah, no, I get asked that part all the time, and I always change my answer about it because there isn't one way that I balance it, to be honest.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I always say that I don't sleep, even though I do. Like a bit of a joke, a bit of sarcasm. I don't know how I balance it. My work-life balance is pretty shit, to be honest. Like, I'll spend after school either watching TikTok, actually doing like paid work, or volunteering. So I don't get much downtime, to be honest. If I do, it's me watching TikTok on the couch, which is quite unhealthy. But I feel like it's just the passion that just, keeps me going. I get burnt out so often, and I've been burnt out so many times this year. It's very draining.
Should we be surprised though? Should we be surprised about that?
Oh, a little bit, but I kind of just knew it would be coming if I was going to be doing this much.
Yeah.
Spending all these hours doing it. And obviously it's not very good for my mental health, but just letting that back to being in nature, just finding time to step outside, get away from the laptop, get away from organizing protests, and just going for a walk in nature is always what I find helps kind of recenter me and just make me feel alive again.
Yeah, and the reason I ask that question is because Tane, you've had burnout happening this year for you, and Tane, the two of you are very, very similar. I think we're very similar. We try and get involved in lots of things, and then it just comes and everybody goes, "What the hell?" How have you navigated that over the last 2 years? I guess, Tane, for you.
Yeah, I think for me, like again, it's probably similar to Nate. I haven't found a one size fits all to the problem, but I think it's learning where to invest that energy, which is probably the hardest conversation you can have with yourself, especially when you're passionate about so many things and wanting to do so many things. But I think again, probably one of the best pieces of advice I got was, and I don't know whether I got it from a podcast or a conversation. I don't know where exactly I got it from, but it's this whole idea that by you saying no, it may suck for you and you may want to do it, but it also opens an opportunity for somebody else. And I think if you reframe that conversation to go, yes, it sucks for me, and yes, I wish I could do, we all want to do everything that we're passionate about, but ultimately you might, lead somebody else down a pathway that gives them greater opportunities that, in a couple of years' time or a couple of months' time could then give you another opportunity to go, in that same passion area that you're interested in, but just in a different capacity. So I think, just because you can't do everything doesn't mean, it doesn't take away from your passion or doesn't take away from your drive, but it's more about, understanding that there's opportunities for others out there and that, different capacities can be put towards things. You don't have to do everything at 100% to, satisfy everybody else that you are passionate about a cause.
I love that. That's a light bulb moment for me, Tane. You by saying no to something, you're saying yes for somebody else, which is really a good way to reframe it. And what a good learning, because I think I'm similar to you and Nate. I say yes to lots of things, and but now I realize that if I just say no, I'm actually opening up the door for somebody else to have that opportunity, which I so greatly want to have myself. So yeah, that's beautifully. But again, it's so hard, right? It's so hard. We're all humans. We all want to say yes all the time. We all want to be the heroes. But sometimes it's okay not to be the hero and just be like, hey, I'm just going to let someone else be the hero. Beautiful. Yeah, Nate, what are your thoughts about that then, Nate? How does that perspective change you as we've had that?
Yeah, I feel like I do align with that a lot. Like, I can't say no to things. I'll get an opportunity, I'll just say, yeah, sure thing. And I don't know, I just often either don't show up, or I just, it's quite hard to balance all these things. Obviously, we've got our needs and our wants because we've got unlimited wants. Well, there's a level one economic students, scarcity and all. We've got all these wants that we want to do, all these opportunities that come our way. We want to do all these incredible things. we don't have enough time, money, or skill to do them all. And just finding a balance. And I feel like as well, quality over quantity. Like that's kind of my goal for next year, is to kind of to focus on that little like statement. You know, I'd rather spend more time on one project or one like kind of kaupapa than spending like, you know, a smaller amount of time on a gazillion others, because that way you can actually have a bigger impact if you're focusing on one thing directly rather than, you know, just spreading, you know, do a bit of stuff here, spend a couple hours on this project, because that way it doesn't always get finished either. And do feel a little bit shit once you know, start a project and you don't even finish it. It's just trying to, balance my work-life balance a little bit better next year.
Yeah, and that's true, you know, because when I in my coaching world, I have a lot of clients who try exactly the same. And one mantra that I live by is if you try to do everything, you end up doing nothing.
Mm.
You know, because you can't, your 100% gets divided up quite a bit, and like you said, Nate, you're not doing the best that you can. So yeah, which is crazy. But focusing on what you do really well, and the thing that you really are passionate about is, let's talk about the seabirds. You know, your passion in that whole space there with that. Yeah, how did you get? I mean, Nelson, you don't really think too much about seabirds with anything with Nelson, about sunshine, anything like that there. So
Yeah.
what drew you to that there? Because that's a whole different
Yeah.
ballgame altogether.
Yeah. Well, I'm a bit of a bird nerd, if I'm being honest with you. I could, you know, if I hear a bird song, like one or two tweets, I can instantly tell what species of bird it is. Bit of a flex again. So yeah, I don't know. There's a really cool conservation organization who I feel really connected to. So they're called HealthPost Nature Trust. So I've got a family batch over at Farewell Spit. So that's like, I think that's the longest sand spit in the world potentially. It's like 32 kilometers long. And then also Wharariki Beach, really famous beach, known for the Windows desktop background. So kind of in that little area, there's a really cool organization, HealthPost Nature Trust, who I do a lot of mahi for. So their kind of vision is to create a wondrous nature sanctuary in their area. So there's about 18,000 hectares of land, which has got sheep farm, sand dunes, beach, cliff tops, and incredible indigenous forests. And within this space is an incredible amount of biodiversity, which when I first went to Wharariki Beach, I was like, oh yeah, cool, seabirds, seals, you know, big deal. But behind the sand dunes, there's just an immense amount of incredible biodiversity, and all of it just actually really it's really at risk because the pest species there's wild pigs for days, and these wild pigs are ginormous because Farewell Spit's quite well known for the annual whale strandings that happen there. So quite often hundreds of pilot whales will strand and die, and these wild pigs will quite literally eat these dead whales. So when you go see wild pigs there, they are ginormous and they are quite scary. So they make heaps of destruction. So they'll go through the sand dunes, they'll go through the cliff tops, and just root up all of this habitat for native bird species. So when you go walking through here, obviously if you're like flying a drone over top or going over on plane, you see green trees, but underneath it is just bare dirt and stone because these pigs will go through and destroy the undergrowth of all of the forest. So that's how things like erosion, the area is so prone to erosion because when all of this rainfall will happen, there's nothing underneath to support all these trees. So the area before, you know, pre-colonization, pre-European arrival, pre-pest arrival, pretty much, the space would have been home to millions of burrowing seabirds, home to hundreds of species. So if you look at somewhere like the Subantarctic Islands, some places like Campbell Island, which is pest-free, if you go there, there is just burrowing seabirds for days. There's like 3 burrows in a square meter, which is just insane to think about, really. So kind of in the area where I work, there's a couple remnant colonies of maybe 10, 20 birds at the very most of these little colonies just spread out across a bit of a hillside. So the work that I'm really passionate about over there is kind of doing some predator control to try and keep down the rat, stoat, possum, and pig population and kind of species over there to try and just bring back these native species. And that kind of links to when we were on about the fluttering shearwater before. So they have got a 3-hectare pest-free sanctuary on a cliff top where they've translocated over 100 fluttering shieldwood, which I've been involved in. So in this little 3-hectare eco sanctuary, it's called the Wharaiki Eco Sanctuary. They've done some incredible work kind of planting trees there. So what was once pretty much a paddock is now covered in trees. It's got a little inner sanctuary, which is also free of mice, which has got over 100 burrows for these birds to live in. And it's also home to the rare Nelson green gecko. So in Nelson, we don't have very many lizard species. The green gecko is probably as rare as it gets and one of the only gecko species. Incredibly hard to find, but we've got a little population of them growing in there. So yeah, my kind of work with them is helping translocate the seabirds. But also, other than seabirds, there are some incredible other bird species that are found there, which are quite deep in the jungle, quite deep in the wop-wops. So I help do things like the bird surveys, annual bird surveys there, and also the bird banding. So kind of capturing the birds, putting a little ring on their legs for scientific purposes. So there's a whole range of mahi I do over there, and I'm very fortunate and very grateful for every single experience I get over at Wharaiki with the trust. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a pretty special part of the country, as you mentioned, for so many reasons. And I think one of those reasons is, it's in the media all the time with the farewell spits stranding. Every year we have that happening, and I didn't realize the wild pigs were there. I mean, I know there's wild pigs, but the fact that they eat everything and anything, and the impact that they have is pretty crazy. Have you come across any of these crazy wild pigs? You said they're pretty scary, and what is that like for you?
Actually, I haven't yet. I've been very close to I've been like, okay, what I mean by that is I haven't actually been like one-on-one with them. I've been in spaces when I've been out like checking a trap line or checking doing like a bird survey or whatever, where there are pigs like directly below the hill. You can hear them, you can smell them. I've walked like on really fresh day-old pig routes where just walking along just underneath all these incredibly huge trees, and there's just pig roots and pig tracks for days. I haven't actually seen. Oh no, I've seen dead pigs that have been recently shot and poisoned there, but I haven't seen the pigs alive. Although, obviously my colleagues over there just tell me all the stories about how scary it is seeing these incredibly big pigs. But just seeing, the remains and their corpses on the beach is quite scary and scary enough for me.
Oh wow, yeah. Crazy. I need to link you up with one of our previous podcast guests on here, and a friend of mine. His name is Michael Fox. Michael Fox is doing a PhD at the University of Auckland and is looking at seabird restoration in New Zealand. And his focus is on the grey-faced petrel. And he does some pretty cool things. So yeah, it'd be someone good for you to talk to at some point, I guess. Just some pretty cool context, Talking about birds, I mean, for those of us that are watching on YouTube, if you're not watching on YouTube, behind you, you've got some great photos of some birds there. Are some of those photos that you've taken, or the photos that there's a whole range of photos that we can see. That's the joy of Zoom. We can look at your bedroom.
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of them behind me over here.
Yeah.
A couple of my friends. You check out my gallery as well. I've got a website. So on my gallery, I've got some of my photos, some of my best photos. I'm hoping to go out this week coming to a pest-free island in the Marlborough Sounds called Bloomin' Island. So I'll be updating my gallery when I come back after I've spotted some incredibly rare bird species there. But
awesome.
Yeah. What
we'll do is we'll put the link to your gallery on the podcast notes as well, so you can share that with the world as well, which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
Nate, anything else that I've missed out? And I mean, I've obviously done some research, but we don't cover all the cool things that you do. Is there anything that you are particularly passionate and proud of, as so far in whatever space it is that you work in, that you go, this is the reason I wake up every day? I mean, obviously there's so much that you wake up every day, but is there anything that goes, hey, wait a minute, apart from including your breakfast, but anything else,
Yeah, besides breakfast.
Yeah.
I feel like
or TikTok, we'll leave those two up for now.
Yeah, you've got it. I feel like kind of my main motive is just being a voice for nature, really. Obviously, nature can't vote, neither can I, makes two of us. So being an advocate for Papatuanuku, someone who's voiceless, just like me, and just, I don't know, that's kind of my main motive. It's just, yeah, being a voice for nature, really. And all these organizations who I work for obviously share that same passion of being a voice for nature or inspiring leadership in rangatahi to be that voice for nature. If I had to pick one organization out of all of them, I feel like HealthPost Nature Trust would probably be my like number one motive. It's an organization who I just feel so connected with. I'm just, always constantly being in the field and just actually, I don't know, because like with forest and bird and stuff, I'm more of like an advocate, so more of like kind of like law, communications, nature communications. Whereas with these guys, I'm actually on the ground doing like direct mahi.
Yeah.
So yeah, just like another level of kind of engagement and inspiration for me.
Yeah, and there's no good or bad one. It's just one that you just resonate with the most because you wake
Yeah,
up in the morning and
yeah,
off you
has
go.
to be them.
You used a very key word. They used the word inspiring, and I'm gonna talk about inspiring. How did it feel for you being validated that you were a semi-finalist for Inspiring Futures? What is that like for you? Getting up to there and that whole process there of the nominations and
Yeah.
people voting, and then you go along and you're like, well, actually, I came second. Or I don't know what I don't know. I'm gonna say the word second, but it's not really second. Everyone's a winner. What is that like for you as a young person?
Um, it feels very strange, and I don't know, just like the fact that people actually feel inspired by my work. I just still don't believe it, to be honest. I'm just some 15-year-old in my own head. And when people DM me on Instagram and be like, "Hey Nate, like I've looked at your mahi, like you're doing some incredible stuff. I feel so inspired." I don't believe them. I just, to me, it sounds very not cocky, but very like ungrateful. But I'm incredibly grateful, obviously. But just like the thought of people being inspired just doesn't sit right. Well, it sits right, but just I don't know. I'm just not ready for it, to be honest. Um, but with the Impact Awards, when I got the email as a semi-finalist, I was honestly blown away. Like, if you read the bios of the 9 other people who were semi-finalists for the Climate Award, I was like, how on earth can you compare me to these people? Like, these people have all started their own businesses. They've done some incredible work across the country, and they're like in their 20s, most of them. I think I was the only one that was actually under the age of 20, even 25 if I was pushing it, in the climate category. So it's just, yeah, crazy to think about how I'm seen on the same platform as these other people.
And I guess that's a testament to someone who does the work you did the work not seeking validation and not seeking acknowledgement. You did the work because you want to do the work. And I think if we think about
Yeah.
all the people that have been named on they're not doing it to get recognition for their personal agenda, but they're getting recognition for the work that they do, which is different. Sometimes people are married to the fact that, hey, this is me, therefore this is it, as opposed
Yeah.
to, hey, this is me sitting over here. I don't really care about me, but I care about the work. So it's pretty awesome for you to go, hey, I don't believe you because it's not about you. It'd be a
Yeah.
very different story if you're like, yeah, actually, this is who I am. Then you're like, actually, they'd get off the podcast. We don't want to talk to you. Get out of here. So, yeah, so that's really cool. But also a testament to the fact that your work is being noticed by other people, which is the best kind of appreciation and validation out there. Which is really,
Great.
I use the word validation, but not really validation. You know what I mean? It's actually,
Yeah.
this is really cool what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to come to the final question because we've been talking for a long time. But anything that you'd like to come before we shift towards the rounding of the podcast that I haven't spoken about that you'd like to share with us or our audience?
I think you've summarized it quite nicely, pretty much. Yeah, that's kind of all of my mahi summed up in less than an hour.
For now, the keyword
For
is for
now,
now.
yeah,
For now,
yeah.
exactly. I'm
Watch
sure
the
when
space.
I'm sure when we have you back in a year's time, it'll be a whole different story altogether. And you won't be burnt out, right? You won't be burnt out. Tony, any,
No.
any questions for Nate before we ask our lovely final question? Yep. All right.
Not
Cool.
at this
So,
stage.
yeah. So that our podcast is called Baskets of Knowledge, and we're very lucky to have people like yourself that jump on. And our traditional last question we ask all our guests is, what piece of knowledge would you like to put into or basket as we move forward in our lives. And that could come from any aspect of your world. It could be personal, it could be professional, it could be your mahi, it could be a cool TikTok you found, whatever.
I feel like just staying true to who you are and just following your guts, following your roots, and just doing whatever you're passionate about, doing whatever makes you happy. Shouldn't be about the money, shouldn't be about recognition, it should be just about, doing your part to be a kaitiaki, I reckon. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Staying true to who you are. And being a kaitiaki. Hey, for our listeners out there, Tate, who are not from New Zealand, what is a kaitiaki? How would you describe it? How would you describe someone who's in the States listening to this here?
Well, pretty much the Māori term for like a guardian, someone who just like protects nature, just does things for the environment, I suppose. But just guardianship really of the planet.
Yeah, and I guess every single one of us has a responsibility. Every one of us, if we only realize that actually we're being true to ourselves, we're being true to nature, and we're becoming guardians.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nate, any last words before we wind up the podcast? There's so much in here which is beautiful. Anything that you'd like to share?
Just keep doing, you guys. Just keep fighting. Obviously, don't want to be a little bit political, but with this new incoming government, a lot of things are going to go backwards. So just staying true to who you are and just keep fighting for what you believe in. Yeah,
there's a reason why I didn't bring that up, because they're on a whole different ball game altogether. So for our listeners who are out there who are not from New Zealand, we have just had the new government being announced, and for some people this is amazing, for others not so amazing, depending on which side of the parties you sit. So we're not going to go on the pathway there, because everyone's got their own opinions. But as you said, whichever party you're on, or whichever side you cop up to, whatever, you've got to do what's right, whatever you think is right. But remember, sometimes what you think is not right is not right for others. But hey, that's another whole conversation altogether, which can become pretty intense. So we'll avoid that for now. But you're right. You're right. Sometimes I think, but also sometimes don't let the politics and all that kind of situation actually take you away from your core work. You can still, no matter what the politicians say, you can still go out there every day, like you said, Nate, and do what you can for what you do in your space. And sometimes we get too caught up in what politicians say that we don't forget that actually, if I just go into this in my backyard, no one, it's actually going to make a difference. Nate, thank you for jumping on. As a young person, as a young rangatahi in New Zealand, the fact that you're doing all this stuff is pretty amazing. And you still have time to go into TikTok, which is great, which is fantastic, which is beautiful. So any last words, Tane, as we run up?
It's just been another cool conversation to have with Nate. Inspiring to see what you're trying to achieve. I think, the whole framework around conservation and nature work in New Zealand, I think it resonates more than other parts of the country, and whether that's because of the indigenous side of things, whether that's because we're a smaller country, so we get to appreciate nature a whole lot more due to some of our smaller regions. I think there's a whole lot of cool opportunities and unique opportunities that we offer here in New Zealand with that space, and I think it's cool to see where you're wanting to take it. I've had friends in the same boat, going down that route, which can be challenging at times, especially with climate change and stuff like that having an impact on our day-to-day nature. But I think it's cool that you're wanting to make a difference, and I'm sure going forward that you will in the spaces that you want to.
Yeah. Any questions for us, Nate? We forgot to ask you that. Do you have a question for us? We've been doing all the questioning here.
No.
Great. Don't put us in the spot. Don't put us in the spot. It's great. Phew. Great. Thank you, Nate, once again. For our listeners out there, hopefully you have found this podcast interesting, informative, and maybe a little bit funny. If you haven't found any of those things there, go back and have a listen, because I'm pretty sure you've missed out a piece of gold and a piece of nugget. And I guess our challenge from the podcast and from Nate today is think about how you can be your own kaitiaki in your part of the world. What can you do to make a difference in your part of the world to allow nature to be nature, I guess, whatever that looks like, whether it's recycling, whether it's taking a walk to work, whether it is who knows what it is in your space. But think about that and think about the piece of knowledge that Nate shared with us, being true to yourself today. Till next time, ka kite, thank you very much. Please don't forget to share this podcast with anyone you think would gain or grow from it. We need you to help this podcast grow. So till next time, ka kite, thank you very much. Stay safe and don't forget to put something into your basket of knowledge. Till next time, ka kite.
Thank you for listening to Baskets of Knowledge.
Yeah, we hope that you found something useful to put into your basket of knowledge. And as we said before, remember to put something little into your baskets of knowledge every week. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and share this podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye.